A recent survey revealing that nearly 1 in 5 workers globally feel they're passed over for business trips due to their accent has raised broader concerns about workplace bias. In the workplace, the biggest impact of these biases is often in the recruitment processes, and if overlooked, can lead to poor outcomes for employers as well as potential employees. I'm going to take a look at this a little further with HR expert Jonathon Woolfrey. Thanks for your time, Jonathon.
No worries. My pleasure as always.
I guess this brings to mind, could the footy team you support really cost you a job? It nearly did for mine on the weekend. Western Bulldogs losing to West Coast. I can't believe it.
You're not a Bulldogs fan, are you?
Oh, I am. Yes.
Oh, jeez. Well, it could cost Adam Simpson his job. I don't think Eagles wanted to win. But, good topic. But it's a funny one. And in all seriousness, this day and age, I know the HR kind of angle to this and looking at footy. I think, accents and certain things like that, we know that people most likely should not discriminate against those kind of things in most circumstances. Footy teams, I think, is an interesting one as well because people do online video interviews. People like having their own personal effects in the background of those things. I've literally been on some of these video interviews before, and people do make comments. If you're a Dockers fan and see an Eagles cap in the background of a video interview, or if you're wearing a tie and things like that. Look, I've never actually had anyone tell me I'm not recruiting those because they're from this footy team or that footy team. But I think we're very passionate people generally, and I do think that it does influence, even if people don't know it, their familiarity and their comfort with these kind of things. So it's trivial. But yeah, I think those things happen. We do know, and there is evidence to support that people do have biases in areas that even are illegal. A expectant mother coming in, people are like, I don't know if they can, do the job and things like that, which are actually illegal forms of discrimination. So there's a whole range of biases that people bring in. Sometimes they're clear about them. Sometimes they're subconscious into the recruitment process, definitely.
Now, when I was working in real estate, Jonathon, some of the houses we sold, just because of the comments that people made after they'd viewed a property, I've told the owners, I said, you need to minimalise, you need to get rid of all this stuff that makes you look like this kind of person because you are actually repelling a potential buyer. And so I guess it goes the same too, doesn't it, with the effect of what you're involved in can affect the choices that a boss might make about you.
Yeah, well, it sounds like real estate agents. My dad was one for 40 years. We're ahead of the curve in this game because you're exactly right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the advice I have for people in this area for the most part. And I hope people don't judge people on their footy teams or their personal effects. But the reality is it does happen, even if the people don't mean to. So my advice is, and it's similar to your advice, Anthony, is, in a video interview, just keep it clean, professional in the background. What you wear, people, particularly video interviews, but if you're turning up, wear appropriate professional clothing. Don't wear insignia of teams or things. In your resume, don't put in hobbies going to the West Coast Eagles or the Western Bulldogs or I like even things like travel and things like that. Again, I like to think most people don't judge on this, but people are like, they're going to ask for leave without pay to go overseas. Don't put your date of birth in there. It's not relevant to a job. All these little things. Just remove I know it sounds harsh, but just remove all these things that people might have preconceived notions on and just leave it simple, professional, and related to the role.
Okay, any other things that we could look at to improve the outcome?
Yeah, a lot of these things about how a job candidate or even someone going for a promotion could better equip themselves to get that role. But I do think employers need to step up to the mark as well and try and flush this out of decisions that they make. And I think they can do that by really focusing on what is really required in the role. People will say to me, they did a spelling mistake in their cover letter and I just hate that, so they're out. And if your job is a professional proofreader, I think that maybe that's evidence they can't do that job. On the flip side, as an employer, I'd be like, is that really that important? We have spell checkers and that these days, and it might be a job for a mechanic or a customer service officer who doesn't require that. That's an example, but just don't have all these preconceived notions about what you like in a recruitment process.
Yeah.
Always ask yourself and test yourself going, is this really required in the role? And try and surface those kind of biases and predisposed notions that we have. So I think employers need to step up to the plate. I think employees, give yourself the best chance by just keeping it simple and directly professionally related to the role. And hopefully the best person wins.
Yeah, great help. Jonathon Woolfrey, HR expert. You can go to www.talenting.com.au for a whole lot more information. Thanks, Jonathon. We'll catch up again soon.